At HFY Galactic Tale we tell stories the human way, not with artificial slop or automated voices. What's HFY without humanity? My name is Dan, and this is the story of how a human's very biology shocked an alien doctor and changed the course of their lives forever. It was just another day on Nulla. At least it seemed normal to those who hadn't yet felt the tremor of the revolution. The planet's local councils collapsed almost simultaneously, replaced by a single, centralized power hungry for control. Off-worlders like Ron Miller were considered convenient scapegoats. They were hauled from their homes, beaten, and thrown into cells designed to hold multiple species, none of whom had any reason to trust one another. Ron barely remembered the chaos. One moment he had been navigating the city streets, dodging rioters and collapsing infrastructure. The next he was being dragged unconscious through the rubble-strewn alleys, tossed like a rag doll into the grim confines of the detention center. His body ached from bruises, cuts, and internal pain that throbbed like molten metal in his chest. Inside the cell, 3 other prisoners watched as Ron slumped to the floor. They were unlike anything he had seen before. Harley, a multi-tentacled alien nurse, whose yellow eyes gleamed against her blue skin, delicate yet imposing in her alien grace. Grow, a small winged creature, vaguely reptilian with scaled skin and bat-like wings that quivered nervously. Ibla, a towering, muscular, purple-scaled biped with no wings, but strength enough to crush steel if necessary. The heavy metal door slammed shut, echoing through the narrow chamber. The guard's boots stomped away, leaving only the ragged breathing of 4 species trapped together. Grow tilted his head, his claws clicking on the concrete floor. "Well, the human looks like he's about to die," he said almost casually. "Look at him," Ibla added, her arms crossed like stone. "Those agents didn't just rough him up, they wanted to make sure he suffered." Harley's tentacles quivered with distress. Her training as a nurse had taken her across 6 systems, through countless species emergencies, and yet she felt completely helpless. There were no scanners, no dermal regenerators, no medicines calibrated for a human's physiology. Only the stale, recycled air of the cell and the occasional drip of dirty water from the ceiling. I can try," she whispered, pacing. "I can monitor his breathing, check for fever, but human physiology is different." Her tentacles slowed, drooping in visible frustration. Grow's small face scrunched in desperation. "Isn't there anything you can do at all?" Harley's mind raced. She catalogued everything she knew: pressure points, cardiac massage, respiratory induction, all fraught with risk. Hit a wrong point and she could paralyze him, or worse. Then a spark of realization. "I can use my tentacles to measure his internal temperature," she said, her eyes lighting up. "Thermal receptors along their length can detect variations down to 1/10 of a degree. And my saliva has broad-spectrum antibiotic properties. It could at least prevent infection." Grow's wings fluttered nervously. Where exactly are you planning to measure it?" Harley froze, mortified. "Through his mouth. It's the most accurate. Stop imagining the alternative." The tension in the cell was almost tangible. Grow and Ibla exchanged glances, trying to process this bizarre human-alien interaction. "Humans bite," Grow muttered, almost to himself. Yes, they do." Harley snapped, her tentacles quivering. "And if he bites me, weeks of regrowth lost. It would be agonizing." With careful coordination, Grow positioned Ron's jaw, and Harley guided her longest tentacle into his mouth. She could feel the warmth of his throat, the subtle tremors of his autonomic functions. The human twitched, swallowing reflexively, but otherwise remained unconscious. Suddenly Ron convulsed in a wet cough, sending both Grow and Harley sprawling. The tentacles slipped free, leaving the human sputtering and groaning as he regained awareness. What just happened?" he croaked, rubbing his throat. "You were in critical condition," Grow said cautiously. "We thought you might die." You took my temperature, with that?" Ron asked, pointing vaguely at Harley's tentacle. "Yes," she said, exhausted but resolute. "It was medically necessary." Despite his injuries, Ron couldn't help but marvel. These aliens, so different from humans in every way, had acted with precision, courage, and ingenuity. He realized something fundamental. Humans were not the fragile species the galaxy assumed. Even in the hands of advanced aliens, a human's body was capable of withstanding absurd odds. As Ron began to comprehend his surroundings, the 3 aliens explained the chaos outside: the revolution, the collapse of councils, the blame placed on off-worlders. Every detail reinforced the dire nature of the situation. And yet, despite all the danger, A small spark of human ingenuity was already lighting in his mind. He looked at the three of them, so different, so alien, yet united in purpose, and smiled weakly. "We're getting out of here," he said. "I don't know how yet, but we will. And I need all of you." Grow flapped his wings nervously, Ibla's muscles tensed like coiled springs, and Harrely's tentacles twitched in anxious anticipation. None of them could fully comprehend the audacity of what he was suggesting. But humans had a way of doing the impossible, and Ron Miller was about to prove it. Outside, the storm of revolution continued to rage. Guards patrolled, alarms blared, and the city itself seemed to groan under the weight of chaos. Inside the cell, however, a different kind of storm was brewing. One of ingenuity, trust, and the quiet certainty that humanity, even in the most alien of environments, was a force to be reckoned with. The first step was simple: survive the night, gather strength, and prepare. But even that was a challenge in itself. Ron's bruised body protested every movement, and Harrely's exhausted tentacles threatened to collapse under their own fatigue. Yet, in the silence between alarms and the dim light of the cell, a plan began to form. A plan that would test the limits of human determination, alien ingenuity, and the bonds of an unlikely team. And for the first time since he'd been captured, Ron felt a flicker of hope. Because on Nulla, survival was rare, but humans were better than rare. The cell was quiet now, but the silence was not peaceful, it was heavy with anticipation. Ron sat against the cold metal wall, his bruised body aching with every movement, but his mind was sharper than it had ever been. He studied his alien companions carefully. Each was extraordinary in their own way, yet they were inexperienced with humans. And humans, as he would soon prove, were a species of endurance unlike any other. Harrely's tentacles twitched restlessly. The adrenaline from her risky temperature measurement still lingered in her system, her delicate skin pulsing with muted colors. I still can't believe you survived that," she whispered, almost to herself. "The physical trauma you endured, it should have killed you. And yet here you are." Ron cracked a faint smile. "We're tougher than we look." His voice was rough, hoarse from coughing and the injuries sustained during his capture. "And we don't give up easily." Grow tilted his head, his bat-like wings fluttering nervously. "Explain," he said, his reptilian eyes wide. "You should have been. I don't even know, destroyed. Crush. Dead. Yet you're sitting upright talking. How?" Ron shifted carefully, testing his injured shoulder. "It's biology," he said simply. "Humans are designed to survive. We endure pain, we adapt. Our bodies are resilient beyond what most species can imagine. Our blood clots faster. Our bones repair themselves. Our brains can tolerate oxygen deprivation better than you might think. And sometimes," he paused, wincing as he touched the bruise spreading across his ribs, "sometimes sheer stubbornness keeps us alive when nothing else will." Ibla leaned forward, her purple-scaled face serious. "Stubbornness, is that a survival trait?" she asked. Her voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Or is it something else entirely?" "Both," Ron said. "It's mental and biological. Humans push limits that would kill other species. We endure the pain, the shock, the lack of resources, and we keep functioning." Harrely's tentacles recoiled slightly, processing the information. "Your oral cavity, it's far hotter than I expected. Even deeper than what I measured with my tentacle. The core temperature, it's astonishing. Your body is compensating for trauma in ways I don't understand yet." Ron looked at her, curiosity sparkling in his battered eyes. "You sound impressed." "I am," she admitted. "I've treated dozens of species with far more advanced technology than humans, yet none responded to trauma with such efficient regulation. Your body adapts." Grow's wings flexed in agitation. "Are you telling me humans are perfect?" Ron shook his head. "Not perfect. We break easily, die easily, and we often make terrible mistakes. But when the situation demands it, our bodies, our minds, find a way to survive. And sometimes that's enough to astonish other species." Ibla's massive arms crossed. "And you want us to rely on that? To trust that your stubbornness will pull us out of this mess?" "Yes," Ron said, his voice firm. "Because right now all of us are relying on each other. If you trust in each other's strengths, we might just get out alive." The alien nurse, Harrely, shivered slightly. "There's another reason," she said, her voice trembling. "Humans regulate their body chemistry in ways my sensors barely comprehend. Your metabolism, it's staggering. You heal faster than any non-human I've treated." Ron grimaced. "Heal faster doesn't mean instant. But I'll take any edge I can get." The small winged alien Grow let out a squeak. "So, You survived both the guards and the trauma, and now you're expecting us to help you escape? Yes, Ron said, eyes narrowing. And I expect you to survive alongside me. Because if we fail, none of us make it out alive. And if we succeed, he let the words hang in the air. Then the galaxy will learn what humans are really capable of. The three aliens exchanged glances. Despite the enormity of what Ron suggested, they felt a growing sense of hope, a rare sensation in the bleak reality of Nulla's prison. Harley spoke again, tentacles curling in contemplation. We could use my sensory abilities to map the lock mechanisms and monitor patrol patterns. Grow, your flight allows rapid reconnaissance. Ibala, your strength can clear obstacles or incapacitate guards if needed. Together, and with Ron's insight, she trailed off, eyes widening as realization dawned. We could escape. Ron nodded. Exactly. But we need more than just brute force. We need strategy, timing, and precise execution. The human brain thrives on improvisation. That's our edge. Grow's wings twitched nervously. Improvisation, he repeated. Humans improvise in life-or-death situations better than trained soldiers of other species? Ron grinned faintly. Better. Faster. And sometimes, with more creativity than you'd believe. The night pressed against the prison walls, thick and suffocating. Ron studied every detail, the flickering lights in the corridors, the faint hum of the ventilation system, the rhythmic footsteps of the guards echoing through the halls. Every observation added another piece to the puzzle of their escape. Here's what we do, Ron began, his voice low and commanding. Harley, you'll be our eyes and our diagnostic tool. You know the prison layout better than any of us. Monitor guards, map weak points, and warn us before patrols approach. Grow, you'll scout outside once the initial attempt begins. Ibala, your job is to create controlled distractions and, if necessary, neutralize any threats to the plan. And me? He flexed his bruised fingers. I'll coordinate. Human ingenuity. Improvisation. Keeping us one step ahead of the odds. Harley's eyes flickered with a mix of dread and excitement. It's risky, extremely risky. But if anyone can survive this, maybe humans really are something special. Grow flapped his wings once, a small gesture of agreement. Ibala simply nodded, her towering presence radiating silent strength. The four of them, so different, so alien in form and thought, were united by a singular goal: escape Nulla. Hours passed slowly as the night deepened. Ron's mind raced through contingencies. Every scenario, every variable, every possible guard response had to be accounted for. And as he planned, he noticed subtle details about his alien companions. The tremor in Harley's tentacles when stressed, the way Grow's wings flexed to signal anxiety, Ibala's quiet breathing patterns as she focused her strength. Understanding them was as important as understanding the prison. And then a small revelation struck him. Humans were not only adaptable in biology but also in perception. He realized that by observing, analyzing, and predicting the reactions of his alien allies, he could coordinate their abilities more efficiently. Humans were wired for teamwork, improvisation, and survival, a combination that made them uniquely formidable. Harley noticed the shift in Ron's demeanor. You're thinking faster than ever, she said, almost in awe. Even injured, you're anticipating everything. It's impressive. Ron shrugged. Pain sharpens focus. Fear sharpens resolve. And desperation, well, that makes us unstoppable. Grow tilted his head. Unstoppable, really? Yes, Ron said. But only if we trust each other. All of us. Our strengths, our weaknesses, they all matter. And if we fail to coordinate, we die. Simple as that. The tension in the cell was palpable. Every creak of the floor, every distant shout, every flicker of light reminded them of the stakes. But amid the danger, something else grew: respect. Not just for each other, but for the species of human ingenuity that had somehow survived what should have been fatal trauma. As the first pale light of Nulla's sun filtered into the prison, casting faint shadows through the bars, Ron made a quiet vow. He would survive. He would lead his alien allies to freedom. And he would prove to the galaxy that humans, though fragile in appearance, were capable of extraordinary feats. Harley's tentacles twitched with renewed determination. Grow's wings flexed with cautious optimism. Ibala's massive form radiated readiness. And Ron? He rose slowly, testing the limits of his battered body. Today, he whispered, voice hoarse but determined, we begin the first step. Freedom isn't given. It's taken. And we're going to take it. The four of them exchanged determined glances, the unspoken agreement clear. Together, human and aliens, they would face the impossible. And humanity once again would prove that survival wasn't just a matter of biology, it was a matter of will. Outside, the revolution continued, indifferent to the struggles within the prison walls. But inside, a small team was planning a rebellion of their own. A rebellion built on human ingenuity, alien strength, and the unyielding will to survive. The game had begun. The prison was waking. The hum of machinery, distant footsteps, and the clatter of guards moving between cells made the corridors a living entity, ever alert, ever vigilant. Ron studied every shadow and every faint flicker of light, his body aching but his mind sharper than ever. Survival, he reminded himself, was a game of patience, observation, and timing. Humans excelled at all three. Harrely's tentacles twitched anxiously, mapping the patrol patterns in real time. She had memorized the sequence of footsteps, the timing of door locks, and even the subtle variations in guard routines. There's a 7.3-second delay between the first guard passing the main corridor and the second turning toward the east wing, she whispered, her skin flickering pale blue with concentration. We can use that window. Grow flapped his wings nervously. 7 seconds? That's nothing. How can anyone move in 7 seconds without being caught? Ron smirked faintly. You underestimate humans, and your winged friend's speed. Grow, your wings are our edge. You can scout ahead, signal us, and even create distractions if needed. Ibola's massive purple-scaled form shifted, her claws clicking against the floor. I will provide brute strength. Anything that obstructs our path, I will clear it. Any threat, neutralized. Ron nodded. Good. Then we move at the next delay. Harrely, signal when the corridor is clear. Minutes passed in tense silence. Every creak, every echo, every flicker of the dim lighting made the small group flinch. But patience was part of the plan. The human brain, Ron reminded himself, excelled at waiting for the perfect moment. And now that moment was approaching. Harrely's eyes widened slightly, her tentacles quivering. Now, she hissed. Ron leapt from his wall perch, testing his injured legs carefully. Pain shot through his ribs and ankle, but adrenaline dulled it. Move fast. Move smart. Stick to the shadows. Grow shot ahead like an arrow. His small form was nearly invisible as he darted along the wall, wings folded close to avoid catching on debris. He crested a corner, peered around, then gave a subtle clicking signal with his claws. The path ahead was clear, for now. Ron, Ibola, and Harrely followed in near silence. Every step, every breath had to be controlled. The guards could be anywhere, and one wrong sound could spell disaster. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed down the corridor. Ron froze. Ibola instinctively tensed. Harrely's tentacles quivered. Grow had misjudged a loose panel on the floor. The sound bounced off the walls, reverberating like a warning. Footsteps approached. Guard voices, sharp, commanding, alert. Ron crouched, analyzing the environment. Take the side corridor, he whispered, pointing to a narrow passage partially hidden by stacked crates. Quickly. Keep low. The three aliens followed his lead. Their shadows blended with the dim light, each movement calculated, precise. But the guards were close now. Ron's mind raced, evaluating every possibility. Human improvisation, he reminded himself, thrived under pressure. One guard's flashlight swept past the entrance to the side corridor. Heart hammering, Ron froze mid-step, barely daring to breathe. Ibola pressed her massive frame against the wall, her tail coiling in anticipation of sudden movement. Grow flattened himself against a crate, wings bristling nervously. Harrely's tentacles twitched, mapping the guard's position with microscopic precision. The light passed. Silence returned. Ron exhaled slowly. Keep moving, he whispered. Minutes dragged as they navigated the maze of corridors. Ron led with quiet authority, guiding the aliens past locked doors, blind corners, and sleeping guards. Every pulse of the prison's activity felt magnified, every shadow a potential threat. Finally, they reached the central hub, the heart of the prison's security system. Here the guards were more alert. Cameras rotated slowly, sensors beeped faintly, and the metal barriers were reinforced. Escape would be impossible without ingenuity. Ron crouched low, examining the locking mechanism of the central gate. This is where we test human ingenuity, he whispered. Harrely, I need you to analyze the electronic pulse patterns. Ibola, be ready to apply force if necessary. Grow, stay alert, any interference you signal immediately. Harrely's tentacles slithered along the wall, brushing against the control panel. She pulsed soft light, scanning the circuitry. The system uses an adaptive lock. Pressure sensors, pulse verification, and thermal detection. I estimate a 2.7-second window to bypass it if manipulated correctly. Ron's lips curled into a faint smile. Perfect. That's all we need. He knelt beside the panel, observing Harrely's signals. Step by step. Timing is everything. One mistake and it's over. Grow shifted uneasily. Humans really think this fast under pressure? Ron chuckled softly. Not all of us. But some, yes. He adjusted his position, fingers hovering above the lock. Now Harrely, give me the sequence. Tentacles quivered, pulse signals analyzed, and then, a green light blinked. Success. The lock disengaged. The metal barrier slid open silently, revealing the open courtyard beyond. Freedom was close, but not yet certain. The group stepped cautiously into the courtyard. The polluted air of Nulla stung their senses, thick with smoke and industrial residue. Guards patrolled in small groups, their attention divided but still vigilant. Any sudden movement, any sound could trigger an alarm. Ron's eyes scanned the terrain. A large pile of containers on the far side could provide cover. Move quickly but stay low. Keep close to cover. Grow, scout ahead and signal the patrol positions. Grow launched into the air, wings slicing silently through the night. From above, he signaled safe paths with subtle flicks of his claws. Ibla followed, her massive form moving with surprising agility. Harrely's tentacles monitored thermal signatures, ensuring they weren't stepping into sensors. Ron moved between them, coordinating, improvising, and adapting to changing circumstances. Suddenly a shout. A guard had noticed movement near the fence line. Ron froze, analyzing options. The fence was electrified, impossible to climb without severe injury. But, improvisation. Ibla, he hissed, use your tail. Coil it around the top of the fence. Apply force downward, just enough to bend the sensor rods. Carefully. Ibla's tail lashed, metal groaning under immense pressure. Sparks flew, sensors triggered, but Grow's flight and Harrely's thermal readings allowed them to dodge patrols. Within moments, a narrow gap was created. Go. Go. Ron shouted. The team sprinted through the gap, metal biting at Ibla's tail but holding just long enough. Beyond the fence, the industrial wasteland stretched out, a dangerous but navigable path to their ship. Almost there, Ron whispered, adrenaline surging. Keep moving. Don't stop for anything. But danger was not finished. From the shadows, a patrol emerged, blaster rifles raised. Energy bolts hissed through the air, narrowly missing Ibla and Harrely. Ron ducked, calculating the trajectory. Human reflexes, he reminded himself, could dodge patterns that others wouldn't anticipate. He grabbed a nearby pipe, swinging it to knock a guard off balance, and with Grow's distraction in the air, the group surged forward. The industrial field was chaotic. Debris, machinery, and uneven terrain threatened to trip them. Ron's bruised body protested, ribs screaming in pain, but his mind raced with solutions. Step over the debris. Follow me. Shadows only. Harrely's tentacles provided guidance, sensing heat signatures, mapping safe zones. Grow's wings generated gusts of wind, knocking small obstacles into patrol paths. Ibla cleared larger ones with brute strength, crushing metal scraps and creating protective barriers. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, in the distance, the cargo hauler appeared, silent, massive, and waiting. Grow flew ahead, signaling the safe path. Ron's legs pumped furiously, adrenaline overriding pain. Harrely's tentacles stretched, guiding her through the last obstacles. Ibla's bulk shielded them from blaster fire as they closed in. They reached the ramp. Grow landed first, waving them aboard. Ron's injured body stumbled onto the cargo deck, followed closely by Harrely and Ibla. The ramp closed just as patrols surged forward, blaster fire striking harmlessly against the ship's hull. The engines roared. Nulla fell away beneath them, a planet of chaos and violence shrinking in the distance. Ron leaned against a crate, breathing hard, scanning his companions. We made it, he whispered. Together. Harrely's tentacles twitched with relief. I can't believe it, we actually made it. Grow flapped his wings, excitement sparkling in his eyes. Humans, you really are something else. Ibla exhaled, massive shoulders relaxing. Strength, strategy, and sheer stubbornness. I understand now. Ron smiled faintly, still wincing in pain. This is only the beginning. We've escaped Nulla, yes. But the galaxy, it has yet to see what humans are capable of. Outside the viewport, stars stretched into infinity. For the first time since capture, the team felt freedom, hope, and unity. But Ron knew the danger wasn't over. Nulla's revolution would pursue them and countless challenges awaited. Yet in that moment, aboard the cargo hauler, human ingenuity, alien strength, and the bond of survival had triumphed. And for Ron, it was proof that humans were more than just survivors, they were unstoppable when it mattered most. The cargo hauler's engines hummed with steady rhythm as Nulla shrank behind them, the greenish haze of its polluted atmosphere fading into the black void of space. For a fleeting moment, relief filled the cabin, until reality reasserted itself. Freedom was not safety. The revolutionaries on Nulla were ruthless, and their grasp extended far beyond the planet's surface. Ron pressed his back against the cold metal wall, wincing as a surge of pain shot through his ribs. We can't slow down. They'll be sending ships, patrols, even bounty hunters. Nulla doesn't give up easily. Grow fluttered nervously near the viewport. Ships. Already? How fast can they deploy? Harley's tentacles twitched, scanning the surrounding void. If they have warp-capable vessels ready, they could intercept us within hours. Even without warp, they have relays. Signals could reach their allies in the sector. They will know we escaped. Ibala folded her massive arms. Then we need to plan. Every second we spend drifting is a second they could find us. Humans, your strategies? Ron's lips curled into a faint smile despite the pain. Humans think differently. Not just strength or numbers. Deception, speed, adaptation. We exploit weaknesses, real or perceived. He straightened, ignoring the ache in his ankle. Grow, you scout. Harley, feed me all data about sensor patterns, ship traffic, and potential interceptors. Ibala, we may need brute force but preferably, finesse first. Ready? The aliens nodded. Grow launched into the void, a speck of brown and gray wings against the black backdrop. Harley extended her tentacles along the ship's external sensors, streaming thermal and electromagnetic data directly to Ron's portable console. He studied every flicker, every anomaly, every subtle pulse in the sector. Minutes later, a warning blared. The small screen flickered red, showing multiple blips converging on their position. Interceptors, Ron said quietly. Nulla's revolutionaries are faster than expected. They've deployed at least 3 small strike ships. And judging by their formation, they expect resistance. Ibala's purple scales glimmered in the dim light. Then let us show them resistance. Ron shook his head. Not yet. Not head-on. We can't risk it. We need misdirection. His mind raced. Humans excelled at misdirection. A feint, a distraction, a carefully calculated risk could tilt odds in their favor. Grow, he said, can you approach them undetected, signal false coordinates? Grow's wings beat rapidly. Undetected? I can try. But if they see me, I'm toast. Try, Ron said simply. That's all we need. Try. Grow shot forward, weaving between asteroids and debris fields, tiny against the vast void. Sensors flickered around him. He adjusted his path in real time, creating phantom blips to mislead the enemy. Within moments, 2 of the 3 interceptors veered toward the false signals, chasing shadows instead of reality. Harley's tentacles pulsed with relief. It's working, partially. The 3rd ship is suspicious. It hasn't taken the bait. Ron leaned over the console, analyzing the remaining threat. Then we improvise. Ibala, prepare the emergency thrusters. We're going to make a jump through the asteroid field. The massive alien's eyes widened slightly. Asteroids? At this velocity? Ron nodded. Humans do risky things all the time. But calculated. Predictable patterns. We follow trajectories through gaps, and pray they can't match our maneuvering. Minutes later, the hauler approached the dense asteroid field. Jagged rocks and floating debris formed a chaotic maze, each piece large enough to crush a ship. The 3rd interceptor closed in, its weapons primed. Hold steady, Ron murmured. This is going to hurt. Ibala engaged the emergency thrusters. The hauler lunged forward, weaving at impossible angles. Asteroids collided with sparks, metal groaning under stress. Harley's tentacles pulsed furiously, guiding the ship through gaps barely large enough to pass. Grow's aerial signals marked paths above, below, and around the largest rocks. The interceptor fired. Energy bolts collided with asteroids, scattering debris in unpredictable directions. One struck the hauler's hull. Sparks flew, alarms blaring. Ron's heart raced, analyzing patterns, calculating escape angles. Humans thrived under pressure. They adapted. They survived. Brace yourselves, he shouted. Ibala slammed her bulk against the ship's floor, absorbing the shock as another asteroid grazed the hull. Harrely's tentacles extended, compensating for minor shifts in trajectory. Grow's wings signaled safe corridors, each beat a lifeline. For 10 harrowing minutes, the hauler danced through death, weaving around enormous rocks, narrowly missing collisions, while the interceptor struggled to follow. Then, in a final maneuver, Ron triggered the emergency warp drive. A pulse of energy enveloped the hauler. In an instant, the asteroid field vanished. They were in deep space, far beyond Nulla's sector. Silence followed, the kind that presses against the chest, filled with disbelief and relief. Ron leaned back, wincing. That was close. Harrely's tentacles quivered, blue light pulsing with exhaustion. If that interceptor hadn't been so poorly piloted, we wouldn't be here. Ibla exhaled, muscles relaxing. Humans, your nerves are remarkable. Calculating, precise even under extreme stress. I understand why you are considered superior. Grow flapped silently, perched near the viewport. I've never seen anything like that. Humans really think differently. Faster. Smarter. Daring. Ron smiled faintly. That's the point. We survive, adapt, and improvise. It's not strength alone. It's our ability to see possibilities where others see barriers. But the respite was brief. Harrely's sensors pinged again. Warning. Multiple contacts, larger ships. Capital class. They've mobilized reinforcements. Nulla isn't letting this go. Ron's face hardened. Then we escalate. We need allies, resources, and a plan that no one else would dare attempt. Humans thrive in adversity. That's our advantage. Ibla's bulk tensed. Then we fight smart, not brute force. I understand. What do we do? Ron pointed to a star chart projected from his console. We head to the Helix cluster. Remote, uncharted, perfect for regrouping. We can resupply, repair, and plan our countermeasures. But getting there will be the hardest part yet. Grow's wings shivered. Uncharted territory? Alone. Ron shook his head. Not alone. Together. And with humans leading the strategy, we have the edge. Even against overwhelming odds, we adapt. Harrely's tentacles pulsed, scanning all available data. Coordinates set. But the cluster isn't mapped for hyperspace. Navigation will be tricky. One wrong calculation, we could end up lost, stranded. Ron's grin was faint but determined. That's the point. Humans love a challenge. The harder it is, the better we handle it. Ibla's eyes narrowed. Then let's move. Every second counts. Every decision, life or death. The haulers surged forward, leaving Nulla's sector behind. Behind them, the echo of the revolution's fury faded, replaced by the vast, infinite expanse of the galaxy. But pursuit was inevitable. The revolutionaries would not rest. They underestimated humans as countless others had. And that mistake would be their downfall. As the stars stretched into streaks of light, Ron reflected on the journey so far. Prison break, escape through enemy patrols, survival against interceptors, and the narrowest avoidance of death in the asteroid field. Humans thrived in chaos. Adapted. Endured. And in this galaxy, that would be the edge no one could ignore. Grow, perched silently, whispered, "Humans, you really are the best." Ron allowed himself a small smile. Not the best, just relentless. And together we're unstoppable. Above them, Harrely's tentacles mapped the next obstacle. Ibla flexed her muscles, ready for combat. And Ron, he plotted, calculated, and strategized. Because in this galaxy, humans didn't just survive. They turned every challenge into a story of triumph. The Helix cluster awaited. Uncharted. Dangerous. Filled with secrets. And the next stage of their journey would test every ounce of skill, cunning, and courage. But one thing was certain. Humans led, aliens followed, and the galaxy would never see them coming. The Helix cluster loomed ahead, a tangled web of stars, gas clouds, and uncharted planetary systems. Even from the hauler's viewport, it was clear this part of the galaxy was unlike any mapped region. Dense nebulae glowed in eerie shades of violet and teal, and massive asteroids drifted slowly between stars like cosmic monuments. Ron leaned over the console, fingers dancing across controls as he traced a safe path. The cluster isn't mapped for hyperspace, he reminded the others. We'll have to jump system to system manually. One miscalculation, we could end up stranded in a neutron star or worse. Grow flapped anxiously near the viewport. Are all humans this calm under death threats? Ron didn't answer. Instead, he studied the nebulae, calculating gravitational distortions, radiation pockets, and likely hiding spots for pirates or hostile species. Humans thrived on pressure. Where others panicked, humans adapted, using brains over brawn. Ibla's massive shoulders shifted as she studied the star patterns. This is madness. Even my species would avoid this cluster entirely. But humans, you see opportunity in danger? Ron smirked faintly. Always. Chaos is a canvas, not a prison. And we're going to paint the next chapter of survival in this galaxy. Harley's tentacles pulsed with soft blue light, monitoring the hauler's hull against cosmic radiation. Radiation levels are higher than expected. If we take a direct path, the shields will strain. I recommend weaving through the nebulae. It will provide cover, but navigation becomes exponentially harder. Do it, Ron said firmly. Humans like difficult routes anyway. Makes victory sweeter. With precision, the hauler entered the helix cluster. Nebulae swirled around them, their electromagnetic currents tugging at the ship. Sensors flickered, and the vessel rocked under unexpected gravitational pulls. Grow zipped ahead, using his small size and agility to scout the safest gaps. His signals pinged Ron's console, guiding their path through a chaotic dance of light and energy. Suddenly, alarms blared. Harley's tentacles shot toward the console. Pirate vessels. Multiple contacts emerging from behind nebulae. They've been waiting for us. Ron's pulse quickened. Pirates in the Helix cluster weren't ordinary criminals. They were scavengers of the worst kind, preying on ships for technology, cargo, or even organ harvesting. Their vessels were heavily armed, and they knew the cluster better than any map could show. Time to remind them why humans are the apex strategists, Ron muttered. Ibla's massive form braced against the deck. I'll handle firepower if it comes to that. But we should avoid direct combat. Ron's fingers flew over the console. Grow, lead them on a chase through the narrowest asteroid corridors. Harley, monitor all openings and radiation pockets. We'll use every environmental hazard to our advantage. Humans adapt, let's see how they fare against nature itself. Grow darted forward, a blur of brown and gray wings. The pirates followed, eager to corner what they assumed was an easy prey. But the hauler didn't just flee, it maneuvered with premeditated chaos. Each asteroid corridor forced the pursuers to split, crash, or retreat. Radiation pockets forced shield recalibrations. And nebulae distorted their sensors, turning their tracking systems into guessing games. Ron's mind raced. Humans thrived where others faltered, turning obstacles into weapons. The pirates underestimated that humans didn't just react. They anticipated, calculated, and exploited weaknesses. Brace yourselves, Ron warned. We're entering the spine, the narrowest part of the cluster. One false move, and we'll be crushed by debris or blown apart by gravitational slingshots. Ibla's bulk filled the control room's viewport. I've got the physical side covered. Ready to crush or ram anything that touches us, within reason. Harley's tentacles extended, weaving data streams to the navigational array. Every corridor calculated, every radiation wave mapped. If we follow this path, we can funnel the pirates into the dead zones, areas where the nebula interferes with sensors and communications. They won't know which way is up. Ron's grin was faint but sharp. Perfect. Humans love using the environment. The cluster itself is our ally. The hauler surged forward. Asteroids loomed like jagged teeth. Gravity wells twisted reality, bending light and radar signals. Grow darted ahead, signaling openings and hazards. Pirates pressed closer, their impatience betraying their overconfidence. Then the first collision occurred. A pirate ship misjudged a gravitational pull, its hull scraping against a massive asteroid. Sparks and metal fragments scattered, blinding their sensors. Another vessel veered too close to a radiation pocket, alarms shrieking as shields faltered. Ron's calculations were flawless. Humans thrived under pressure, and every mistake the pirates made was another step toward survival. Keep pushing, he ordered. Don't let them regroup. Ibla flexed, her tail whipping out to knock debris into the path of a pursuing pirate. The ship's bulk and strength turned a natural hazard into a strategic advantage. Harley's tentacles pulsed, projecting energy shields where stray asteroids threatened the hauler. We're almost through the spine, she reported. Just a few more tight corridors, then open space. If we make it, we'll be clear for now. Grow's wings beat frantically, signaling one final twist. A corridor barely wide enough for the hauler but impossible for larger pirate vessels. The hauler slipped through, scraping against jagged rocks, but the hull held. The pirates, bigger and slower, got wedged. Energy bolts ricocheted, and two ships were disabled in moments. Ron allowed himself a brief exhale. Humans had survived yet again, through intellect, adaptation, and teamwork. But the danger was far from over. The hauler emerged from the spine into a relatively open system. Stars stretched in calm patterns, nebulae distant. But on the sensors, new threats appeared. Nulla's fleet reinforcements were already on the move, their warships faster and more numerous than the pirates they just evaded. Ron's expression hardened. Nulla underestimated us. But humans always have contingency plans. We need allies, supplies, and intelligence. The Helix cluster may be uncharted, but it's perfect for a base of operations. Time to find a neutral system, resupply, and prepare for what comes next. Harrely's tentacles pulsed, scanning the open space. I detect a nearby asteroid settlement, likely neutral traders. Minimal defenses, plenty of supplies. We could dock there safely, but it's not entirely risk-free. Ron's smile was faint but determined. Risk is our currency. Humans survive by turning risk into opportunity. Plot a course, Harrely. Grow, scout ahead. Ibola, ready for any surprises. The hauler surged forward, leaving behind the remnants of pirates and the chaos of the Helix cluster. The universe stretched ahead, unpredictable and infinite. Humans thrived in uncertainty, and Ron knew that no matter the dangers ahead, they would endure. Not because of strength alone, but because of ingenuity, adaptability, and relentless determination. Grow flapped beside him, eyes wide. Humans, you're unbelievable. Ron allowed himself a small grin. Not unbelievable. Just relentless. That's why we survive, and why we lead. The Helix cluster faded behind them, but its lessons lingered. In the darkness of space, surrounded by uncharted systems and lurking dangers, the four unlikely companions, human and alien, prepared for the challenges ahead. Every obstacle would test their courage, their wits, and their bonds. But with humans leading the way, even the impossible became achievable. The stars stretched infinitely before them. And in that vastness, one truth remained clear. Humans were not just survivors, they were a force the galaxy could never ignore. The asteroid settlement, a sprawling cluster of domed habitats and docking bays, drifted in silent orbit around a dead star. Its metallic surfaces gleamed dimly under the distant light, and faint energy signatures hinted at the presence of traders, engineers, and mercenaries. For the first time since their escape from Nulla, Ron allowed himself a moment of cautious optimism. "We're here," he said, surveying the settlement from the hauler's viewport. "Safe, at least for now." Grow's wings fluttered nervously. "Safe for humans? Maybe. But there's always danger lurking in asteroid colonies. You know that." Ron smiled faintly. "That's why we humans survive. We don't ignore danger. We anticipate it, manipulate it, and use it to our advantage." Ibola shifted in her seat, the weight of her massive frame pressing against the deck. "Advantage is relative. Here the locals are neutral, but outsiders rarely stay that way for long. They'll sense the presence of a human captain and his companions and make assumptions." Harrely's tentacles extended over the control panel, scanning every signature of the settlement's defenses and potential threats. "Minimal fortifications, but the energy shield is old. I could probably reroute our shields to interface temporarily with theirs, give us protection while docking." Ron nodded. "Do it." Humans improvise, and sometimes that's enough to turn the odds in their favor. The hauler drifted into the settlement's docking bay, engines throttled to minimal output. Ron, Harrely, Ibola, and Grow coordinated silently, a well-oiled machine born of trust and desperation. Grow flitted ahead, scouting corridors and signaling the safest path. Ibola positioned her massive frame to shield the smaller companions from potential hazards. Harrely's tentacles wove protective energy fields around the ship's hull. As the hauler docked, Ron stepped onto the settlement's metallic walkways. The air was thin, tinged with recycled oxygen and faint radiation from the nearby star. Traders and technicians glanced at the newcomers, suspicion etched on their faces. One particularly burly alien, a four-armed engineer with scarred gray skin, stepped forward. "Who are you? What business do you have here?" he demanded. Ron held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "We mean no harm. We're refugees, survivors of Nulla's revolution. We seek temporary shelter, supplies, and safe passage out of this system." The engineer studied him carefully. "Nulla? Dangerous place. Your kind doesn't survive long there." Ron's eyes met his with quiet confidence. "Humans survive where others fail. That's how we endure." The engineer's expression softened slightly. "Perhaps. But survival here requires more than confidence. You'll need allies, resources, and plans." Ron nodded. "Then help us." And in return we offer our skills and loyalty. Humans excel in strategy, repair, and leadership. We'll prove our worth. Harrely's tentacles pulsed, sensing subtle changes in the engineer's energy signature. I recommend docking in the inner bay, closer to the workshop and shielded from potential attacks. Minimal exposure, maximal control. Agreed, Ron said. Grow, scout the perimeter. Ibla, be ready to intercept any threats. Let's show them humans are worth keeping around. Grow darted through the settlement's narrow passages, small wings beating furiously. In minutes he returned with confirmation. The settlement's defenses were minimal, but locals were curious and suspicious, exactly the balance needed to operate under the radar. Ibla's massive body shadowed the hauler as it moved to the inner bay. I don't like being small in crowded places, she muttered. Humans, you really managed to navigate chaos differently. Ron grinned. Chaos is our playground. We thrive where others panic. Once docked, the team set to work. Harrely interfaced with the settlement systems, rerouting shields and recalibrating energy flows. Ibla helped secure supplies, moving heavy crates with ease. Grow acted as scout and messenger, darting through corridors to relay information and ensure no one followed them unnoticed. Ron focused on strategy. They needed intelligence, allies, and a plan to counter Nulla's relentless pursuit. We need to know their fleet movements, patrol patterns, and command structure. Humans excel at reconnaissance. We'll gather the data, exploit weaknesses, and prepare for what comes next. Days passed in tense productivity. The settlement's inhabitants grew accustomed to the newcomers, grudgingly respecting their competence and efficiency. Ron's leadership, Harrely's technical genius, Ibla's strength, and Grow's agility formed a synergy that left the locals both impressed and wary. Then came the news. Scouts detected a Nulla strike force entering the outer systems. Not just patrols, an armada. Their target was clear: capture or eliminate the human captain and any allies. Ron studied the data, calculating probabilities, trajectories, and vulnerabilities. They expect a straight fight, he said. But humans don't fight straight. We improvise, adapt, and use every advantage. That's how we survive against impossible odds. Ibla's tail flicked, a display of both tension and readiness. Impossible odds indeed. Their fleet is larger, faster, better armed. Direct confrontation will get us killed. Grow's small claws tapped against the console. So, what do? Hide. Ron shook his head. No. We don't hide. We lure, trap, and dismantle. Humans are masters of asymmetric warfare. We'll turn their strengths into weaknesses. Harrely's tentacles extended across multiple screens, mapping every asteroid, nebula, and gravitational anomaly in the surrounding systems. I can create interference fields, reroute their sensors, and isolate portions of the fleet. It will take precise coordination, but it's possible. Ron's grin was faint but sharp. Exactly. Humans thrive on coordination under pressure. Let's make sure they regret underestimating us. The plan was meticulous. They would draw the Nulla fleet into the Helix cluster again, where natural hazards, radiation pockets, and gravitational distortions could be used strategically. Grow would scout and signal optimal paths. Ibla would act as heavy support, intercepting ships and creating openings. Harrely would manipulate energy flows, shields, and sensor interference. And Ron would orchestrate every move, exploiting human intuition and creativity to outmaneuver a superior force. When the Nulla fleet arrived, they were confident, aggressive, and utterly unprepared for human ingenuity. The battle began. Asteroids became cover, nebulae distorted sensors, and gravitational anomalies twisted trajectories. Ron's commands were precise yet adaptive, human instinct guiding strategy in real time. Pirates and Nulla ships alike faltered under coordinated chaos. Grow darted through gaps, relaying crucial openings. Ibla crushed pursuing vessels with raw strength. Harrely's tentacles manipulated the hauler's shields and rerouted energy to disrupt enemy targeting. The humans' approach turned the impossible odds in their favor. Ships were trapped in gravitational folds, energy beams collided, and superior numbers became a liability. The Nulla fleet had underestimated the power of human adaptability and the synergy of a diverse team. Hours passed, but the tide remained in their favor. The Nulla forces, confused and disoriented, began retreating in disorder. Ron allowed himself a faint smile. Humans don't just survive. We dominate through ingenuity, coordination, and relentless resolve. Finally, the battlefield cleared. The Helix cluster, chaotic and dangerous, had become their weapon. Every asteroid, nebula, and gravitational distortion had been leveraged to perfection. The Nulla fleet fled, leaving the human captain and his allies victorious, not through sheer power but through intelligence, strategy, and determination. Ron surveyed the aftermath. Grow perched nearby, wings folded, eyes wide. I've never seen anything like that. Humans, you're incredible. Ron shrugged, humility masking pride. We survive where others fail. We lead where others stumble. That's humanity. Ibla flexed, massive arms twitching with residual adrenaline. I underestimated you, all of you. But I see now. Humans, you don't just survive. You inspire survival in everyone around you. Harrely's tentacles pulsed softly, a calming rhythm. And adaptability, humans turn chaos into order, danger into opportunity. It's remarkable. Ron nodded. We are not perfect, but we excel where it counts. That's why we endure, and why the galaxy can never ignore us. As the stars stretched infinitely before them, the four companions, human and alien, prepared for the next chapter. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown systems, threats, and possibilities. But with humans leading the way, every obstacle could be faced, every challenge overcome, and every victory seized. The Helix cluster faded behind them, a reminder of survival, ingenuity, and the HFY truth. Humans, no matter the odds, would always find a way. And for Ron, Harrely, Ibla, and Grow, the journey was only beginning.